Commenting is a technique that's common to all programming languages. With commenting, you can leave yourself notes so that you can understand what your thinking process was when you wrote a particular program. In Python, commenting is supported by using the hash sign. So if I type the hash sign here, I can type in whatever I want for the rest of this line. I can say, hello there, my name is Craig. And that's perfectly acceptable. What the hash sign does is it indicates to Python that we're going to be typing in a comment or some arbitrary text that Python should ignore. So anything after a hash sign will be treated as though it is not part of your actual code, but it's just a note for the programmer. It has no bearing whatsoever on the actual execution of your program. So what we can do with this is we can use it as a way to document our code. So I'll give you an example here. Let's write a program, and we're going to ask the user for their name. So name is equal to input of what is your name. And then we're going to go ahead and compute an average is equal to, let's say they got 100 and a 90 and an 80. These are their test scores. We'll call this total, actually. And then we want to compute the average. And the average is going to be total divided by 3. And then we're going to print out you earned, comma, total points, which is, comma, average. There we go. So this is a relatively simple program. Eventually, your programs are going to be a lot more complicated. We're talking hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of lines of code. Perhaps not in this class you'll get to 10,000 lines of code, but eventually, if you continue with this, you'll be writing really, really long programs. So what we can do inside of here is we can comment our code to make it a little more understandable so that later on, if we have to look at this code, we can understand at a glance exactly what's happening on a particular line. And even better, if somebody else picks up our code, they can very quickly figure out what we were thinking about at a particular moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go before the first line here, and I'm going to type hash, ask the user for their name. And then here I'm going to say compute total points earned. And here I'm going to say hash compute average. And then down here, output. So you can see here we've gone ahead and we've added in some English descriptions of what is actually happening inside of our code. So we're interspersing both English and Python code within the same source code file. Now, if we run this program, you're going to see that it's going to run exactly as the Python code dictates, but not any of the comments will be completely ignored. So I'm going to go over here and type in what is your name, Craig, and then it's going to print out the computation there. Note that all of these comments are being ignored. You can also use comments to turn off particular lines of code. So let's say I have a line of code down here and I don't know why it isn't working. Let me say print hello world. All right, so why would that line not work? If I run this program, we're going to actually see that Python's not going to allow me to run the program. EOF while scanning string literal basically means that, or EOL, that there's a problem with the string literal. Now, we already know that the problem here is that the delimiters are mismatched. But imagine that you didn't know that. What you could do is you could put a hash sign before that line, and you could basically turn off that line of code. By using commenting, you can selectively disable certain portions of your program so that Python will ignore those statements. One more thing with commenting. You can have multiple lines of comments. So let's say we have this whole program here, and we want to keep it, but we don't necessarily want to run all of this code. What we can do is we can create what's called a multi-line comment. So what a multi-line comment looks like is you put 3 quotes somewhere in your code, and then later on you put 3 more quotes. And what that does is effectively turns off all of the code between these quotes right here. So you could turn off multiple lines of code. If you were to do this with a hash sign, you would have to actually go to each individual line and put a hash at the beginning of each line. But with triple quotes, you can very easily turn off a whole section of your code. And now we can continue with our program down here, and Python will ignore this entire block of code here and will begin processing at this line right here.